Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'll be doing a walkthrough of one of my projects for my Masters year at Stafford University. This project is called Oh Dear and it's an environmental piece for one of my modules. The brief for this project was to create a game inspired by a retro arcade game but recreated for a modern audience. So the game I chose was Frogger. Mainly because it's one of my favourite retro games that I played as a kid. Obviously right off the bat you can tell my game's not about frogs, it's about deer. But other than that, it pretty much follows the same kind of gameplay ideals. The main narrative of the levels really is the deer has been separated from its family and lost in a city, so it's trying to get back from the city to the forest. Within the menu, you have your generic choices. You have an options menu for graphical improvements. Also a leaderboard to keep track of everyone's scores. So let's get right into the game. So we start off on what's meant to be like the outskirts of a city. So the first thing you'll notice is kind of the environmental choices I've made. Through a lot of my environmental choices I wanted to kind of portray how the deer was feeling. So obviously it's feeling isolated, sad, upset, alone. So I wanted to make it look as isolated as possible. So there's a lot of fog, there's rain, there's thunder, it's set at night. Just kind of added more of a tense atmosphere. Okay, so in terms of gameplay, we have your normal WASD controls. In Frogger, you normally auto jump when you move, but for this I added a spacebar just to make sure the player's making more of a conscious decision, making the right choices throughout the level, rather than the game holding your hand as much as possible. In terms of making progress through the level and adding to your leaderboard score, you get 25 points when you move forward, and 100 points whenever you collect a flower throughout the level, which these pickups, there's different flower models for that are chosen at random. So one of the first things I did that carries over from Frogger is the highway system. So if you've played the game, you know that there's certain lanes where cars will be going across and you can get knocked over by a car. So obviously that was the first obstacle I decided to make, which pretty much works very similarly. It uses AI to move as opposed to simple timelines, which is how I originally had it set up. But something I added to that lane mechanic is a traffic light system. This is to add a bit of variation to the gameplay, but also to entice the player to explore the level and maybe find as many shortcuts around the level as possible, so they can get across the level as easy as possible, gathering as many points as possible. So when you get to the traffic lights, it'll start to change colours and allow you to cross. And as you progress through the level, obviously obstacles can become more difficult. So here you can see we have a road which has 4 lanes of traffic rather than the 2 we just had, which could be trickier for some players. Here we have another kind of legacy mechanic from the Frogger games, which is the logs, which are basically just lily pad type situations where you can get over rivers instead of falling in the river and drowning, which is another way that the player can die and have to respawn. On to respawning. As you can just see there, I have a checkpoint system in this game, which isn't present in the Frogger game, because their levels were pretty straightforward and weren't as long as these levels. What I found in testing was players weren't really getting that far through the level because they kept dying before they could get anywhere near the middle of the level. So to kind of make it less of a so the players don't have to restart from the beginning each time. I added checkpoints in just so they could actually see the whole level. Obviously, as if this were a full game, the checkpoints would get less and less as the levels got more difficult. Another new thing I added under this game is the UFO, which you can see going across the top of the screen there. This is to add a bit of variation to the level, because without some kind of mechanical or man-made looking objects in the level, it was just going to be a lot of trees and a lot of grass, which might get a bit boring for players, or at least less visually appealing. So if you're not lucky enough to see them from that far away, they can be characterised by the lights which you'll see spinning around on the floor. If you get caught on those lights, the UFO will then start lifting you up, and then you'll be forced to respawn. And there you go, see the lights going past. Now another object in the level which is kind of rare to find because the level's is quite big and they spawn randomly throughout the level are foxes. These are animals in the level which you can choose to find and help get back to the forest, and there's respawn. But they will be an animal that will follow you through the level if you find them. But they'll also give you a bonus points to add to your total. They'll add 500 points to your score. Checkpoint. Okay. As you can see across from this road now, you can see two human people going across the level. Those are another entity which I added to this game, which are hunters. They are basically they act very similarly to the UFOs in that they'll patrol up and down the level, and if you get caught in the light, they'll shoot, and then you'll be forced to respawn. Something you'll notice as we're going through the forest areas, I've added fireflies into the forest, mainly as to give an explanation to why there is light in the forest. Otherwise it would look very fake having just floating lights in a forest where there should be no light. We'll also see certain environmental features like the huts there, or the campfire right ahead, where obviously are another trick to add light to what would be a very dark environment. Wait for him to go past before I make my next move. As you can see as well, in the forest, I chose to have more of a dirt track for roads rather than repeating the same pavement style that I have in the earlier parts of the level. That's obviously just to add a bit more realism, because you wouldn't have paved roads in a forest. It also changes the environment up a little bit rather than just straight up grass everywhere. As you can see there across the road, we have our goal. So the idea of getting back to the family is represented by a stag, although in my documents I have it written as the mother of the fawn, but obviously female deer don't have antlers, but I wanted to add a deer with antlers because it adds a bit of variation. But there you go. And the game is won. So if we press quit and go back to the menu, we should see our score on the scoreboard. Thank you for watching. See you next time.